Hi, this is Andréa Banke. I'm the Oboe professor at Wichita State University, and this is a little online clinic to help you through your all-state music this year. This year it is the wonderful Sonata No. 1 in C minor by Georg Friedrich Handel, who lived in the Baroque period. And what I'm going to do first is play it through for you so you can hear kind of how the opening Adagio is supposed to sound. And then I want to talk about some practice tips for this first movement. It seems really simple, but it's not. And then we'll also go over something that you may or may not have heard of called ornamentation, which is about embellishing a slow piece to really make it your own original and more wonderful composition. We'll talk about that in a minute. So that is the Adagio. Actually, Handel originally wrote it to say largo, which would be even a little bit slower. But we're definitely in a subdivided 4. So what I would recommend to practice this so you don't lose your subdivision on that very long opening note is set the metronome somewhere around 8th note equals 86. Could be a little bit slower if you want, but this will help you keep the pulse. I'll give you an example. And you can go through like that. I would really recommend practicing in this fashion to begin, because we have these very long notes and we tend to want to compress the note values in our mind and get going because it seems like an awfully long time to hold a note. But the nice thing is that with that very long C, we have an opportunity for great expression. Now in your edition, the editor has marked a crescendo through the whole thing. I think that's a very good idea. If you know how to use vibrato, I would definitely suggest as you increase in dynamic, we also increase in our vibrato. In fact, I recommend starting with no vibrato and using it as an expressive tool as you go through there. Now, this is just a practical concern. It's a little bit hard to start on that opening C, isn't it? It's not our favorite note on the oboe. It's kind of open. It wants to kind of bark out at us in a dynamic that we can't control. But something you might want to try, I would suggest starting at a comfortable dynamic level, maybe even louder than you think is necessary. This is just for practice. And play a couple of healthy C's, maybe mezzo piano, Now, here's a trick. The oboe, we're taught to inhale, hold it, compress, set, and then release the tongue. I would not recommend that in this case. In fact, it helps if you get rid of a little bit of the air before you start. So you're going to watch me. I'm going to inhale, but you might not notice something. I'm going to exhale a little bit of my air before I start so that the air is already headed in a very horizontal direction, so there's not all this pressure built up so that my first C explodes. Otherwise, it could sound like this. We don't want that. That way we can start a very gentle dynamic level at a true piano. Okay, now I said I'd talk about ornamentation. You can play it exactly the way it's written, but in Handel's time, and your judges will know this, so don't worry about this. In Handel's time, it was not only okay to ornament or embellish, it was expected. So what we can do, we can add extra trills, we can fill in intervals, we can add all sorts of extra notes. And I want to play for you an ornamented version. Now this is just out of my own head. You could come up with something different. So I wouldn't expect that you do all of that, but it is actually really wonderful if you can add a few extra trills or pick an interval that you want to fill in. And no judge would have a problem with that. If you're worried about that, you could even say, I'll be playing my own ornaments today. And several of my students have done that in the past, and it's just fine. So, again, to summarize, cultivate a very legato style of tonguing through this whole thing. You don't want any harsh attacks, and you want gradual but effective dynamic changes, and just a gorgeous lyrical, sustained, connected breathing and melodic style through this whole first